G'day guys and gal. Before the return of Guilliman and the arrival of the Primaris, the Imperium did actually play around a bit with messing with Gene Seed and Space Marines in an attempt to improve them or modify them in some way, either as an experiment or due to the desires of a mad genius. Now the issue is that Gene Seed is inherently psychic and sacred. Editing it without knowing what you're doing is very risky and has created some extremely bizarre Space Marine chapters. For example, during the Curse founding, the Lamenters were created by editing out the Black Rage from their Gene Seed, which seems like a good idea, however it resulted in the chapter being extremely cursed and unlucky. Another spicy founding where science was taken too far was the 13th founding, aka the Dark Founding, where three very strange and controversial Space Marine chapters were created. So I thought it'd be interesting to check them out for today's video. Before we get started, I know I said the Majorkill Custodian desk pads would only be around for 1 week, but with how awesome the reception was and how many of you pick one of these up, I thought we would extend for another 72 hours before I take this down for good and send the order off to the supplier. For some context, I created a one-of-one Custodian Guard PC setup, featuring a custom mouse, keyboard, PC, and desk pad. The desk pad is large, high-res, features a custom artwork of Ryan Endymion, Trajan Valoris, and the Emperor, and to make it even cooler, it's an RGB desk pad, so it lights up around the rim and you can even choose what color you want. Someone asked if Valdor was actually that tall, and the answer is yes. Valdor towers over other Custodies and is more akin to a Primarch in height, with the lore even stating him to be taller than Leman Russ. I can't speak more highly of this desk pad. It's a massive way to level up your setup while paying respects to the Golden Banana Boys and the Big E himself. Not to mention Uncle Mal gets a feature as well. Last 72 hours, then sales are cut off and production and shipping begins. We will never bring this back and the artwork literally isn't getting posted anywhere. Link is below. Today we'll go over the Dark Founding, detailing what chapters emerged from this founding, if the founding was overall a good idea, and what about it is considered so dark. Let's get into it. The commonly held belief that the Imperium did absolutely no innovating or inventing for 10,000 years, which is why mankind stagnated or even regressed, isn't entirely accurate. Many within the Mechanicists were trying to get ahead by discovering, improving, or inventing something. They just had to be careful since invention often led to disaster, and it was actually a huge no-no to try edit or improve upon the Emperor's works. As such, most of the information regarding the Dark Founding is redacted. Unlike the Curse Founding, where each chapter's Gene Seed was modified with the exact intention of improving them, which in turn was met with the mixed results, it's not actually clear what the Mechanicus was trying to do with the Dark Founding, as they ended up creating the Death Spectres, an even edgy version of the Raven Guard, the Exorcists, an extremely hardcore anti-chaos chapter whose initiation involves their members getting possessed by a demon and then getting exorcised of said demon to greatly improve their resistance to chaos, and finally the third and most questionable chapter were the Crimson Sabers, who ended up falling to chaos in extreme fashion, and as such a lot of their lore is redacted, which is a pain in my ass, but we'll see what we can do. Starting us off with the Death Spectres, at a glance they look and sound like Raven Guard. They have a lot of the same gene defects such as the albinoism and the very over-the-top serious personas. What was strange, however, was when the new chapter master of the Death Spectres swore his oaths to the Emperor and the Imperium at the base of the Golden Throne, the Emperor specifically spoke to him, which rarely ever happens, and told him to seek out a specific death world that had a special artifact on it. The Death Spectres did this, finding the artifact to be a dark throne of glass. The throne is extremely psychic and mysterious. The chief librarian of the Death Spectres sits upon it, mirroring that of the Emperor, and is slowly petrified until they die. While on the throne, their power massively increases, however they seem to direct it towards an unknown, unseen source. The Death Spectres have been selectively breeding and recruiting psychic people to one day bring about their chosen one, a chief librarian who would be powerful enough to resist petrification and unlock the full power of the Glass Throne. Now what does the Glass Throne actually do? After all, getting told it's super powerful and turns chief librarians to stone is cool and all, unless it literally does nothing. Then it's lame as shit. Well, it does appear to act as a psychic beacon and also forewarns the Spectres of incoming attacks. However, what I think it's mostly used for hasn't happened yet. See, the Death Spectres are the guardians of the Ghoul Stars. Not to keep them safe, no, to keep whatever horrors are within contained. Thousands of years ago, some kind of Lovecraftian apocalypse emerged from the Ghoul Stars, killed a shitload of people, and was eventually contained at great effort. I would not be surprised at all if the Glass Throne is primarily used to monitor and contain this Lovecraftian threat. There are other similar thrones in the galaxy that follow a similar vibe. The Golden Throne on Terra, and Dark Glass, which was similar to the Golden Throne but was destroyed. All these thrones were extremely taxing, required a Psyker, and would burn out the Psyker. Maybe the old ones just really liked thrones. It seems as if the Death Spectres are the only ones suited for this task. After all, the Emperor himself was the one that gave them this mission, and he isn't exactly the chattiest guy around these days. So perhaps the Dark Founding was partially guided by the Emperor's hand. Because of how vital their task is, they rarely abandon their post to help the Imperium, even if chaos is rampant. Most of their operations involve containing or even invading the Ghoul Stars. However, when the 13th Black Crusade broke out, they did get involved against chaos, showing just how serious that was. The next chapter that's a part of the Dark Founding were the Exorcist chapter. Many people actually believe these guys were a Grey Knight successor chapter, the only one in existence, as they were extremely anti-chaos and their methodology was extreme. Basically, to be an exorcist, you need to welcome a demon into your body, let it wear you like a meat suit, and then have that demon exorcised from your body. However, newer lore has revealed the Exorcist to be an Imperial Fist successor, which does actually make sense. Firstly, Grey Knights are way too pure to be possessed or allow possession, even for a good cause. And secondly, Imperial Fists are known to be extremely resistant to chaos due to their mindsets and highly stable gene seed. When Fabius would experiment with Loyalist Marines, turning them into monsters, he remarked that the Imperial Fists were always the most difficult to control and manipulate. Funnily enough, this method of allowing possession and then revoking it wasn't always a part of the Exorcist methodology. They were originally founded as just the specially chaos-resistant Imperial Fists. However, during a battle, their chapter master was forcibly possessed by a demon. Using what little shred of himself that remained to contact his chief librarian, they managed to banish the demon from within him. Afterwards, he was almost entirely resistant to chaos and warp taint. He almost became like a low-key pariah, like the door to his soul had been permanently sealed shut. A radical sect of the Inquisition came to investigate and was shocked that this method seemed to have worked so well, so the chapter decided to recreate it with all of their battle brothers. This first attempt actually went pretty fucking poorly, as demonic possession sucks, so many exorcists were dying or becoming husks. An entire company of them went insane and ran away from the chapter to join chaos, so overall a bit of an L there. However, as the chapter refined its training and methods, more and more exorcists made it through the process and came out in one piece. Only the Grey Knights could now boast a more incorruptible chapter. They weren't entirely immune though. When an exorcist Judicia killed Lucius, he was still overtaken by the curse of Lucius, regardless of his discipline and resistance to the warp. As a fun note, when the Exorcist Primaris reinforcements were on the way to the chapter, they were viciously and repeatedly attacked by chaos, killing all Exorcist Primaris on board with only the Custodian surviving. Even the Custodian was like, fuck me, Chaos really wants to kill these guys. It's unclear why Chaos was so keen on that though, since the Exorcists were actually pretty happy not to get any Primaris, and instead just get the new Primaris tech to use on their own recruits, which had already gone through their strict rites and rituals to prepare them for the exorcism process. Now, is there a catch to all this? Like, surely you can't just shove a demon into everyone, and those that survive intact now just have all the benefits of demonic resistance, with no downsides. Yes, there is a catch. Being a host of a demon is bad for your cholesterol and mental health. Exorcist Marines are known to be strange, moody, and sometimes make decisions that don't seem to make much sense. The price they pay to have this resistance is a portion of their sanity, a price they are happy to pay. Some will also actually develop chaotic mutations, like horns and scales, as a result of their 12-hour possession session, and will undergo surgery to remove these mutations. Often these mutations will return, so they continually have to undergo the same surgery, often while awake and without pain relief. There are so many fun facts about this chapter, it's nuts. When they do pass their trials and exorcise the demon from within them, they are then sent to a nearby demon world where they basically go Doomslayer mode for a bit before then being taken back out. There is always a strike team of Grey Knights nearby in case shit gets out of hand, but it's got to be one of the most insane initiation processes for any Space Marine chapter ever. Because of their extreme chaos resistance and due to being part of the Dark Founding, the Inquisition works very closely with the Exorcist chapter. And the last and definitely least is the Crimson Sabers. We don't actually know which chapter these guys were a successor of, but I have a theory. They were known to be ruthlessly efficient and extremely adherent to the Codex Astartes. Sounds very Ultramarine. However, they were also extremely ruthless and aggressive in battle. It's almost like the Imperium wanted to make Ultramarines that had the aggression of World Eaters. If they could get the best of both worlds, it would create an unstoppable force. And create an unstoppable force it did. The Crimson Sabers were seen as a chapter to aspire to be. They were fierce in combat, but also able to keep a cool head and maintain their nobility. They were masters of shock assault, just as good as the legendary Blood Angels in this method of war. They fought in countless wars and earned praise from the Ultramarines, Black Templars, Blood Angels, and many more. However, this is where the issues began to arise. After being so successful and praised, the Crimson Sabers overstepped. During a joint mission to clear out a demonic-infested Space Hulk, they fought alongside both the Blood Angels and the Dark Angels. They were supposed to follow the lead of these two mighty first founding chapters, but instead ignored them and did their own thing, being seen as reckless and arrogant, like an uppity newcomer rather than a respected veteran. To make matters worse, the Dark Angels try to be sneaky and interrogate some of the surviving humans in the Space Hulk to get information regarding the Fallen. This was interrupted by the Crimson Sabers, who accused the Dark Angels of heresy, and a fight broke out, with the Astartes dying on both sides, not Idealio. As a direct result of this, the Crimson Sabers were like, fine, fuck you, and decided to sever all ties, in both history and culture, with all other Space Marine chapters, including their own founding chapter, which is why we don't know who they are a successor of. They would now only answer to the Codex Astartes and the High Lords of Terror from now on. They still perform their duties exceptionally well, as can be expected if you take the best aspects of both a World Eater and an Ultramarine. However, there were some setbacks. Their desire to crusade and prove themselves left their homeworlds undefended, which then resulted in their homeworlds getting turbo blasted to death by by demons. All of these small incidences built over time to result in a bit of a crash out, as the Crimson Sabers mistook a religious celebration on an Imperial world for a chaos cult, hence they killed everyone. Now sure, there was some tit-snitchy and shit going on, but genociding an innocent Imperial world is a bad look. This also activated the flaw within them. During the battle, they began to enter a red berserk rage that made them disassociate, but also traumatized them after the battle. They could no longer sleep. Any attempt to do so would merely show them the faces of the innocents they had killed. They tried everything to purge themselves of this apparent curse, and the only thing that seemed to work was to annihilate another Imperial world, which resulted in them being declared as traitors. The chapter didn't want to be hunted and purged by the Inquisition, so instead they Leroy Jenkins into the Eye of Terror, hoping to receive a noble end and take as many traitors with them as possible. They actually did a pretty fucking good job, purging world after world, falling deeper and deeper into bloodlust. The thing I like about the Crimson Sabers' fall is that it took ages, centuries of doubt, many incidences, and finally a full-on charge into hell itself. Eventually, their leader decided that death was cringe and that he would rather live, so he summoned his chapter, told them that they no longer sought death, but would seek life and find a way to lift their corruption. Some of the chapter rebelled and were killed. The rest were reformed into the Crimson Slaughter and began raiding both chaos and real space, becoming one of many chapters whose path to hell was paved with good intentions. Interestingly, I feel as if, despite it causing the fall of their chapter, the Crimson Slaughter wiped out like a shitload of chaos cults and traitor warbands, and will actually continue to do so, which is pretty handy if I say so myself. So that's the Dark Founding, a bunch of edgy emos that have a glass throne that does something, a bunch of Imperial fists that shove demons up their ass and then shit them out, and then a bunch of extremely angry Ultramarines that fell to chaos. Nice. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the desk pad. Only 72 hours. This is your only chance to get this. I will never bring this back. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.